The warring sides in Sudan have accused each other of being behind breaches of the latest ceasefire, now in its third day. A fighter jet was shot down over Omdurman, northwest of the capital Khartoum, and artillery fire has been reported near a military base. The Sudanese army and the rival paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces, have been locked in a power struggle for more than a month. Saudi Arabia and the US brokered the 7-day ceasefire, which has agreed to allow humanitarian aid into the country. Well, Arise East Africa correspondent Mark Bichachi has been monitoring developments in the region, and he joins me now live from Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Good to see you, Mark. So the current ceasefire in Sudan not being respected, according to the deal's brokers, the US and Saudi Arabia, with a reduction in the conflict in some areas, but the fighting continues elsewhere. What's the latest?
Well, indeed, Charles, your reporting is quite accurate. First and foremost, there have been reports of conflicts at downed jet, as you said, in Khartoum, artillery fire in Omdurman. What is even more concerning is scanty reports, yet unconfirmed reports from the Darfur region, especially the city of Al Janina, say that the kind of violence they're experiencing has actually not declined, whereas in the rest of Sudan, you can say there is a bit of a lull. In Darfur, what we are hearing is that the violence still continues, especially in Al Janina. Now, what this means, Charles, is that the trust between these two generals is fading further and further by the day. And two, the people of Sudan are no longer trusting that these two generals are capable of keeping their word. So the situation, as far as them ignoring this ceasefire, is actually making not only the present situation worse, but prospects of further discussions and further peace even dwindle even more.
And what clarity do we have about monitoring, if any, is taking place from the US and Saudi Arabia, Mark? I mean, they say they're watching closely what happens, but is there a formal mechanism in place as far as we're aware? I mean, are they, for instance, using drones or some form of electronic surveillance to detect ceasefire violations?
Well, that is an interesting question. And as far as I've been able to hear is that this particular mechanism to monitor has not been fully implemented. In fact, the only monitoring that is happening is both sides reporting on each other, saying that this side has done that or this other side has done the other. For example, we've seen an increased amount of reporting claiming that the RSF has broken into hospitals, has killed a number of people in hospitals. We've seen reports of them hiding within civilian infrastructure. Now, these kind of reports are one, coming from citizens, but two, also from their detractors, the army. So I have not seen or had any reports of any kind of observance or report from the Saudis or the Americans as we speak, Charles.
And Mark, do you get the sense that one side or the other, the armed forces or the rapid support forces, are gaining the upper hand militarily, or is that a hard assessment to make?
It's a very difficult assessment to make, simply because what they are fighting for, primarily the presidential palace, the army headquarters, the capital of Darfur, those seem to be the main places where these particular conflicts are centered upon. But the army keeps shelling the presidential palace, for example. The army keeps engaging the RSF in the various suburbs of Khartoum, and the RSF keeps attacking the army's headquarters. So it seems as though they are locked in an even Steven stalemate, where none of them seems to be having an outright lead, even though if you listen to their rhetoric, they both claim to have made significant advances against each other.
And very briefly, Mark, is there considerable support in the region for the idea that sanctions must come next, that if this ceasefire doesn't hold and the fighting rages on in the next few days, then it's time to go after the leaders of both sides?
Charles, I can confirm that, yes, indeed, the patience is wearing thin, not only regionally, but also with the powers of the United States, where sanctions are being discussed and are being considered as an option, because it is becoming rather clear that these two generals are not after peace. Whether you look at the rhetoric, whether you look at how many ceasefires they have all ignored, we are easily past half a dozen ceasefires. So the region, leaders of the region, different stakeholders in the region are now talking about taking serious actions against these two generals.
Mark, thanks very much indeed, and thank you for your meticulous reporting. Mark Bichachi is Arise East Africa correspondent. He was talking to me there from Nairobi.